guys, and welcome to my presentation of the short story, The New Spain, from Colm Tóibín's The Empty Family Stories. In this short story, the main character, Colm, struggles through family ties that have been broken due to political pressures from their time period. This therefore suggests that this time in Spain was very hostile from one political party to another, and that the aggression between them was brutal enough to tear family members apart forever. Although this short story does not list a specific time period, there are many clues that lead me to believe that this happened directly after the death of Francisco Franco, the military nationalist dictator that ruled Spain after their civil war. The main conflict of the Spanish Civil War was between the Republicans and the Nationalists, and the Republicans eventually had the Communist Soviets to help them in their endeavors against the Nationalists. Actually, according to one of my secondary sources, the documentary History of Communism, the Spanish Communists gave their full support to the Republican government of Spain during the Civil War, which followed General Franco's rebellion of July 1936. Therefore, it is only understandable that our main character had been out of the country for 8 years when we find out that she is also a communist, and that she could now return since the, quote, death of the dictator, also known as Francisco Franco, had just recently occurred, which we can find on page 138. In a biography about this man, it is stated that he was, quote, seen as one of the world's foremost anti-communist figures, which is on biography.com. Therefore, since this was the reigning political party of Spain for the past couple years, all of her old friends and family, except her recently deceased grandmother, seemed to think of her only as, quote, the girl who had caused all the trouble, the communist, the one who was arrested, which is on page 140. Her mother even yells at her with fervor at one point by calling her a, quote, lazy little communist, too lazy and useless to work and too lazy and useless to ever finish a course, which is on page 158. Therefore, as I read, I wondered how political opinions could truly cause this much familial damage, and had to research further. Therefore, once I realized what time period this book was written about, I would say that this is a very historically and culturally accurate tale of how a communist member would be treated at her return to a slowly healing country. One sympathetic character remarks of how the police, quote, tortured her under Franco, which is on page 172. This shows that some people, even though it seems to be just a few, understood her plight, making the story seem even more realistic by not making every character completely anti-communist. However, in the beginning of the Civil War, Franco's role in the suppression of the government, quote, made him a national hero, which is found on bibliography.com. It was considered a huge success to be out from under the thumb of the previous failing rulers, even though Franco had a very oppressive rule and imprisoned many people during his time of power. So when the Spanish communists, which include Colm, gave their support to the Republicans instead of Franco, they seemed as though they were stirring a political pot that had just been settled. Therefore, our main character, along with, quote, the leaders of the Communist Party, were forced to flee from Spain when General Francisco Franco and the Nationalist Army took control, which can be found on SpartacusEducational.com. This helps to prove the time period for me when reading this short story, and I can understand now how family ties, even between a mother and a daughter, could be broken through this type of strain. Their entire country had fought valiantly for their freedom, and at this point wanted the fight to end. And all the communists that had rebelled against this new dictator seemed like troublemakers and were looked down upon with disgrace. Even Colm's father shows disdain towards his daughter when she first had to leave her home country. She recollects how, quote, her father had silently taken her to the airport. His rage against her then was palpable and elemental as he stood watching to make sure that she made her way through the departure gate, which is on page 137. Once I researched the history behind this story, the cultural insight was phenomenal and made this reading even more intense. Since it matches up so well, I would say that this is a very culturally accurate story and that it accurately describes how communists like Colm would be treated after her exile during this time. Thank you.